Thank you and welcome to Gina Montana's Peace, Love, Mother Earth Vibrations Cookbook. I'm here today to share with you one of my favorite recipes, tofu and Creole tomato sauce. I started cooking at the age of 9 years old. I'm the oldest of 5 girls and 1 boy, and I was so small back then I had to stand on a kitchen chair to reach the stove to stir the pot of red beans and rice for my brothers and sisters, and that my mom would have when she came home from work. Throughout the years, I developed a vegetarian diet based upon authentic traditional New Orleans dishes. I've been a vegetarian for 35 years now. So what I've done is created this vegan version of kind of like a shrimp Creole, but I call it tofu and spaghetti, or tofu and Creole tomato sauce. My daughter, when she was at age 5, this was her favorite dish in the whole wide world, and I can't tell you how joyous it has been to hear a 5-year-old say to me, "Mommy, can you cook some tofu and spaghetti for me today?" So it's been quite a wonderful journey, and I just wanted to show you all and share with you some of the recipes from this very healthy, antioxidant-rich diet and recipes that I've created over the years, original recipes. One of the things about cooking tofu that a lot of people, I think, have to get over is the texture of the tofu. And folks don't like that spongy texture. Also, I noticed that some people cook tofu and they just really don't rinse it properly. So the key to success in cooking tofu is rule number 1, drain all of that old water off. I always make a couple of cuts so I can get in there, and then I really rinse it. I rinse, and in the container, I rinse it, and then I gently press and press. Get all the old water out. Sometimes if I have time and time permits, I may even soak the tofu in some artesian or spring water just to make sure I get all of that old water out that it's been sitting in, which is clean, purified water, but you know it's packaging, so you want to drain that out and get the tofu to its freshest original state. Okay, so now that that's done, I'll just transfer it over into my little, and I'll rinse it again. I really want that old water out. And like I'm saying, if you want to set it in some spring water for about 10-20 minutes, that's good too. So I just go into, directly into the saucepan. And what I'm going to do is coat the saucepan with some olive oil. I usually use brands that are discounted and affordable. And I got like a low to medium, I'm sorry, let me say that again. And I also have a medium to high flame. So I'm just going to kind of coat the pan with the olive oil. I can use that because it adds really great flavor. Some folks, if they, you want something milder, you can use your canola oil to fry the tofu in. And while that's heating, I just go ahead and I slice the tofu directly into the pan. Just make some cute little cuts there. Really fast with it, I'll kind of go like that, and then I'll position it into the pan. Doesn't have to be like a perfect square or anything, because this is all going to get cooked down into the Creole tomato sauce. My cookbook will also feature nutritional information on the foods we eat. In addition to the high protein content in tofu, this food item is also rich in calcium and it's just a great substitute, you know, for eating meat. I've never used a food processor in my life. I cut everything by hand, my seasoning vegetables, anything I cook. So I've gotten pretty good with the knife over the years. My grandfather taught me how to use a knife and an ice pick. I used to have to chop the ice for him or peel shrimps for my grandfather. And I also had to devein the shrimps. He taught me how to fish, grow vegetables. I have an organic garden. I have one of my chayote sprouting here, just as an aside. So this is one of my featured recipes. I cook. We call it Millerton in New Orleans. And I grow those organically in my backyard at home. So I get a lot of that from my grandfather, my great-grandmother, and my mom, of course. So through the generations, a lot of our recipes and cooking traditions have been passed down through many generations. Up until the 1990s, my family, we had 5 generations alive. So from my great-grandmother to my daughter, and I can't tell you how much of a blessing it is that I have those photographs of my daughter with her great-great-grandmother. So my great-grandmother, she didn't cook tofu like I'm doing right now, but she did make the sauce that I'm using. And she lived to be almost 100 years old, or 100 years young, because she was still walking around and riding the bus up until her 80s, I'm telling you. So what I'm going to do now is season the tofu before I start cooking it. As you all know, it is pretty well known, tofu is just like a sponge. It'll absorb any and every flavor you put on it. So I do a light salt. I do a very light salt on it because the herb seasonings and the aromatic vegetables is what I rely upon to bring most of the flavor to my dish. So I don't think that was even a teaspoon of salt. And you know you're from Louisiana, you got to use that cayenne pepper. But I do a very light sprinkling so that way it's almost undetectable, a little bit more. And for folks who may not like anything too spicy, I never put anything overly spicy. I cook what I call, I eyeball my measurements. But I know for the purpose of a cookbook and a recipe, it's very easy for me to determine, like this is approximately a tablespoonful of oregano leaves. Normally I use thyme or Italian seasoning, which also has the thyme, rosemary, sage, and some savory in it. So I love the flavor of the thyme in the Italian seasoning mix. So I'm just going to really generously herb season the tofu. I'm going to really generously herb season the tofu. Even though I'm going to put fresh garlic into the recipe and into the gravy, I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of garlic powder just for that extra oomph. You know, you can't ever go wrong with that flavor, that garlic flavor, and that combination of the olive oil, oregano, and garlic. So those are my herb seasonings, and that's all done. Now I'm going to just turn up this fire, get it up a little higher, and I'm going to toss everything together. And then I'm going to let this marinate in the olive oil while it's cooking. So no one who's ever had my tofu could say my tofu tastes bland. And I call this, I'm always making up names for my cuisine and my original creations. Just like, for example, a coconut curry from out of Thai cuisine. And I'll incorporate traditional Louisiana ingredients like some Creole tomatoes or some Louisiana crawfish into the dish. I only cook vegetarian, vegan, seafood, and poultry dishes. I have not touched red meat, beef, pork, lamb, any of that kind of stuff for almost 40 years. And I grew up deep in the hood in New Orleans, so I'm telling you, back in 1978, when I stopped eating meat,
My mom and my family, they thought I was crazy, that I had lost my mind. And my mama used to chop up little bitty pieces of pork and try to sneak it into my vegetarian dishes because she thought I wasn't able to get my protein. But I cook with a lot of international ingredients like quinoa and couscous. I love millet and different grains and fruits and vegetables from around the world. But I always bring it full circle and I bring it back home to New Orleans because I'm a native New Orleanian. As I said, my family has many, many generations, not just in New Orleans, but in the state of Louisiana, like Pointe-a-la-Hache, Plaquemine Parish. My grandma, my father's side, she's from New Roads, Louisiana, which is called Pointe-a-Pitre Parish. So I have a lot of roots, not just in the city of New Orleans, but also in the rural parishes. So I'm very blessed that I have that balance, that unique perspective of my rural country girl roots, but also the inner city vibrations of living in the neighborhoods of New Orleans, our great city, New Orleans. So as you can see, I'm frying the tofu. And I know most folks don't use olive oil for frying, but this process works really, really well. And if you could just, even from the herbs and the garlic powder and the oregano and thyme and the cayenne, it's smelling good already. Okay. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to start to chop my seasoning vegetables. Normally, I would do this over the sink. I got the seeds going out all over the place, so I'm going to take a step over here. And this is how I use my knife. I always go back to my grandfather and how he taught me, how to make those really nice, smooth cuts. I don't like any little defect or little brown spot I see in the vegetables. I've already rinsed this. Sometimes you might want to save parts like this for your soup stock. I already have the root from my celery, so I'll put these on the side. So when I make a vegetable soup, I'll have those vegetable parts to season my stock. And I'm going to cut this seasoning up real quickly. Depending on my mood, I might make little bitty cuts. I don't like the little bud in mine, but I just put it on the side. And I just kind of go like that with it. This is all how my grandfather taught me how to cook the seasoning. Sometimes I use the chopping board, like for the onion. It's a whole lot easier to use the chopping board. And I get all of that really great, nutritious green bell pepper into the recipe. The flavor, the vitamin C, all of the nutritional content. And it tastes good. That's what we really want. We want our recipes to be healthy, nutritional, and it's got to taste good. Plain flavor. I'm using all natural ingredients. Now it's been a few years, but I've grown these in my garden as well. The green bell peppers, Creole tomatoes, eggplant. In Creole we call that aubépine. Some people say aubergine in French. And I'm only growing the milletone right now in my organic garden, but in some previous years I did also grow the bell peppers. I keep saying I'm going to use a food processor one of these days to cut up my seasoning vegetables, but so far I'm still doing it the old slow cook way, and I'm chopping up my seasonings by hand. Okay. So that's my bell pepper. And I'm going to check on my tofu just to make sure it's browning. That's what I want. So I'm going to turn this over. One of my favorite parts of cooking is when I have guests over to my house, whether it's the Mardi Gras time or they just, you know, friends coming over and they're meat eaters, and I give them some of my vegan, vegetarian food, and they're asking me for a to-go container to take home. Like, girl, you can't tell me they didn't have no meat in it. That tastes so good. One of my cousins, we still have my container for my vegan red beans and rice, but I don't mind. I told them bring it over the next time they visit, and I'll fill it up again for them. Because that's what cooking is all about. You know, sharing these recipes and experiences with friends and family, and just share. You know, I'm gonna keep saying that part, and I can delete it out. I know. I noticed my sleeves. Sharing these one of my most favorite parts of cooking is sharing these recipes with friends and family, and you know, just helping other folks learn about the benefits of eating an antioxidant-rich diet. I try not to eat any empty calories. Everything that I cook and consume has some nutritional content and value, and for me that's very, very important. I'm going to turn this down a little bit since it's browning very, very nicely, so that way when I put in the onion and the rest of the herb season, I may add a little bit more bell pepper into the recipe, but this is so easy to do by hand to me. I hold everything together. That's it. You know, I don't have a whole lot of fancy, expensive knives, but I use what I have, and I make do with the best that I have. You know, I'm a single mom, head of the household. I have one daughter. She's grown now, but I'm telling you, cooking through the years and making sure that all of our recipes were healthy and nutrition was just one of the joys of growing up. Sometimes when I get to the end, I'll just slice it a little like that. I've never cut myself. You know, it's amazing. I cook and I cut stuff up with these knives like this, but I know just how far to dig in and just how far to stop. And a lot of times, you know, when I'm home alone, I'm doing this for the purpose of this. I might just chop this directly into the pan, depending on my mood. So, this is a nice coarse chop. And sometimes, like I'm saying, if I want to get it in a little bit finer chop, I'll just take some of the larger pieces and I go like that with it and chop everything by hand. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put these onions right into the pan. And next I'm going to add the bell pepper. A little seed in there, but that's okay. There's more vitamins for you. Alright. More flavor. More vitamins too. I think about 7 of these. I love that green onion shallot flavor. Put down really nice, wilted, caramelized almost. So I'm giving everything a nice coarse chop today. A little bit on the tablecloth, but that's all part of cooking. Get a little part on the tablecloth. Okay, so now
Just get these out the way. And I will add the green onion into the recipe. And then celery. Take a couple of stalks and just usually slice them in half. And the leaves. And it's just a very zen process. Cooking is so relaxing to me. I always say if I ever needed therapy, I would just go in the kitchen and start cooking. You know, I'll make me a cup of, I have my favorite tea, and I keep that on my cooking table, so, you know, I'm just in my kitchen and chilling, chopping up seasoning. If it's a little later in the evening, I might have a little Pinot Grigio or some Chardonnay, and maybe a nice Cabernet or Pinot. And if I want thinner slices, I just dig in on them, on the larger pieces, and I just break it on down. I cook with my left and my right hand. Sometimes I think I'm ambidextrous. And I always cook with love. I keep a very spiritual approach to everything that I do. So I'm just going to eat those. Nice and crunchy. Okay. So I'm going to toss all of the seasoning and the tofu together right now. I'm telling you, this is smelling so good. It's a little big there. Yummy, yummy. Okay, so while that's browning, I'm going to get a couple of pieces of the fresh garlic ready. And it's the same old thing. I got this big old knife. Sometimes I will use my my cheese knife, my smaller knife, to cut the garlic. Everything by hand. Sometimes I may just put the entire bulb of garlic into my recipe, depending on how garlicky I want it. I don't like any little blemish, I take it out. I don't like blemish in my food. Oops, this one's a little, I got it. And I can use my knife, you know, filleting fish, deveining shrimp, dicing, chopping, slicing, you name it. Something to do with the knife, I can do it with cooking. Okay, I'm listening to the, make sure I keep an eye on this part of the recipe. So it's sizzling really good. It's safe to say I can keep with my energy on the garlic, my focus and attention on getting this garlic into the pot. So this is going to be really nice and rich and garlicky. Okay, I'm just going to give them a quick rinse. Not that it's necessary. I feel like the vegetable is tender. I'm just going to quickly rinse.
And depending on my mood, I'm going to just slice the garlic. I'm going to turn the fire down a little bit because you know how fast garlic cooks. But I'll just shave it just like this. Get those little pieces. And next one. So sometimes I'll chop it directly into the pan, or I may just, take it in onto the chopping board and give it a quick chop like that. It all depends on the mood and how big or tiny you want your pieces of garlic. But I tend to just go and shave, I call it, or I may just quad it off. Okay, let me get the rest of the garlic. And I think I'm gonna just make some little big chunks with these. Save a little time there. Oh, it's a piece of tofu that's stuck in there. Alright. Okay. So I'm going to put up the fire a little bit more. For a little added, for some added extra flavor, I'm going to add butter substitute. Just like about 2 tablespoons of vegan butter or Smart Balance, whatever your favorite is. And I'll add that into it. And let it continue to cook down and simmer. Since all of this is really going, and I'm going to add some water into this pot. And get ready to boil the pasta for the dish. I only cook with artesian or spring water. This water costs 89 cents a bottle in my neighborhood, so I boil the pasta in spring water and lightly salt the water. I don't believe in that putting cooking oil in with the pasta. I just let it cook al dente, and I just it like that. So next up, I'm going to add to the tofu dish tomato paste. This is the brand my grandmother used, and this is the only brand of tomato paste I use when I'm in New Orleans. Called Gina. I don't even call it tomato paste. I always rent the top of the can off too. I always say, hey, go get me some Gina from the store. So 2 small cans of the Gina. And sometimes I see 1 large can. This entire dish is $20 or less to make. And so what I do with the tomato paste, I may need a smaller spoon for that. I kind of, what I call, I fry it off. All of this browning and extra cook on the food, it allows the tofu to just really get immersed into all the flavors and seasonings. So let me hurry up and get all of this in so it can all cook together. I love writing poetry, so in my cookbook I'm going to have some original poems. And I am an avid photographer. I take pictures of everything. I literally have thousands of nature photographs, landscapes, portraits, photos of the art, music, and culture in our great city, New Orleans. So in my cookbook, I'm going to also like to feature some of my original musings, my original poetry, and original photography, kind of like vignettes of everyday life. How we do it, why we do it. And so this is the basis of the tomato sauce. We'll go ahead and heat this for a few minutes, and then I'm going to get these fresh tomatoes on in there. Okay. With the fresh tomatoes, those go in next. I'll just do a quick chop on these. And sometimes I'll just do a little slice, have a couple of slices, depending on how ripe they are. I'm going to really try to get a nice, clean shot of me cutting the tomato, kind of like this. And get that little part off. And I'll just keep all of it in until, because for some reason these are a little mushy. I wasn't expecting that. Okay. I'm going to cut the tomato. Come on, tomato. This could just very well be the part where I'm just going to show, you know, the, putting it in something like this one. So anyway, cutting the tomato is, very, very simple and easy. I just do a rough chop once again. I'm using my small chopping board because that's what I got. That's all I got. So I didn't go out and buy anything new, but yeah. You know, just get that fresh produce in your diet, in your recipe. Okay. And in goes the fresh tomato. Okay, wash this up in a minute. Plenty flavor. add just one more very light sprinkling of salt, mainly for the tomato. At the end of the simmering of the gravy, I'll put just a teaspoon or so of honey in it to cut the acidity. And right now, all I'm going to do now is make that gravy. And this is how I do it. And I'll let that come to a boil. This dish is so good. And what I love about cooking with tomatoes is they also have the lycopene in it, in addition to the vitamin C, which is just such a powerful nutrient and antioxidant. It just helps in, what I call prevention. I believe in the prevention. Don't wait till you're sick to start eating healthy. You got to do that now. And, it's not even at a ball. I'm going to take a taste and see if I need to adjust any of the seasonings. It's pretty good. Maybe just a dash more of oregano at the end. I'll just add some more of the herb seasonings at the end. And let this simmer on high for about 20-30 minutes. Cook down to a nice thick gravy. If I have to adjust, add some water. Sometimes you got to tweak a little bit. But right now we're looking really, really good with G's Tofu and Creole tomato sauce coming at you from New Orleans, representing that 504. Alright. Okay, this is the part I could edit out. I just want this to come up to the boil. And I'm going to, in a minute, get ready to put the noodles in the pot. Even though I know I can edit this out, I'm going to step behind you just to get paper towel, okay? You can maybe do some close-ups of the tofu or whatever. This is really, really going great. Thank you so much. Alright, so while everything is getting ready and the gravy is simmering down and all the vegetables and the aromatic herbs and seasonings are all merging together to create this unique, healthy and delicious dish, I'm going to start boiling my pasta and preparing the noodles. I call every pasta noodles. I love noodles. Rice noodles, whole wheat noodles, buckwheat noodles. So today I'm going to use some whole wheat linguine for the noodle part of the tofu dish. And I always I break mine in half. It's in the bag. And I'll generally use a half a bag at a time. I know some people a lot of folks like their noodles long, so it's just your personal preference. A pasta that really works well with this recipe are the large shells, but when you use the large shells, pre-cook your pasta, drain the large shells, and add it directly into the gravy, and then when you serve it, the shells are like little pockets that hold all of the nutritionally rich Creole tomato sauce and the tofu. Experience. So I'm hoping you can try that with a variation as well. But today we're going to use the whole wheat linguine. And I'll just break those off and let that cook for a minute or two. And I like my pasta kind of chewy, al dente style. So I'll test it in a couple of minutes and stir it around to make sure they don't stick on me. I got the pasta. You can serve this dish with this looks really, really good. It's just simmering down, and it's one of those dishes that kind of cooks itself. You know, I feel like there's a spirit to the recipe. And if you have your own favorite veggies, or you want to do some colorful yellow bell peppers, the orange might blend into the red or something, that'll be more of a contrast. It'll be good. When I was a kid, my grandmother would make this same gravy, and when we were having really good times, it would be shrimp, and it would be shrimp Creole. And then there were times when maybe my grandfather was out of work. My mom was also a single mom, so we lived with my grandmother for a long time in their household. And my grandmother sometimes would make this Creole tomato sauce, and she would just crack eggs into it while it was boiling. And she would just put the raw egg, and the egg would just immediately boil, and she would let it hard cook, and then put the red gravy, we call it red gravy sometimes too, of course. She would put the red gravy with the boiled egg over some pasta, and that would be our dinner for the day. Because if they didn't have meat on the table, which we had vegetarian dishes, but it was more because of the budget, or someone was out of work at that time. So, but I remember standing on the chair and watching her put the eggs into the Creole tomato sauce. And I mean, talk about good. And she might just have that with a potato salad and some buttered toasted French bread. And with little or nothing, it was like with nothing, we had everything. We had this amazing gourmet food that may have cost her back then, who knows, $3 or something like that. But she fed the whole family with that. So I'm at this point right now, I almost want to crack an egg into this recipe, just in loving respect for her memory. So, but I'm doing this vegan version of Creole tomato sauce and with the tofu. So my pasta is boiling really nice. I'll come back and check on that. In the meantime, I'm going to adjust the herb seasonings. I did the taste, and I'm feeling like we need a little bit more flavor there. So, you know, for purposes of the cookbook, of course, I would measure out in tablespoons and teaspoons. But the way I cook, I call it, I eyeball it. So I'm going for a tablespoon of that. The oregano leaves. This is the Italian seasoning, which has the thyme. A lot of times I'll just use just regular dry thyme, but I didn't have it in my cupboard today, so it's the Italian seasoning, which has the thyme in it. And I think that was a teaspoon, and I'm going for just about a teaspoon or so with the garlic powder. And for the cayenne pepper, I didn't taste the cayenne in it at all, so I'm going to add a pinch more of that to bring out that flavor. And a lot of times when I cook, I will add the herb seasoning at the end of the dish, but for the purpose of infusing the herbal seasoning into the tofu, I had to season the tofu at the beginning. But you always want to add, if you're cooking with fresh basil, fresh thyme, oregano, or the dry herb seasonings, to taste and then adjust your herb seasoning toward the end of the dish. Because, you know, even with your measurements and everything like that, the ultimate recipe is taste. And you want to make any necessary adjustments, you know, because you want it to taste good how you like it. So that's always a good healthy tip too. Okay, well, it's all coming together really, really good, and I got
got some garlic bread on the side and some baby kale or some broccoli. So we would, once we plate this dish, you know, we would accompany it with a green vegetable, maybe an organic spinach, sauteed with some mushroom, the pasta and the Creole tomato sauce and tofu. But right now we're just going to focus on getting this sauce done. And I'm going to be plating in a couple of minutes. I'll be right back after this break. Thank you. Okay, so with the herbal seasonings added in, I'm going to do one more taste. Try not to add any more salt in. I'm going to get a taste with the tofu crumbles in at this time. And let me lower this. So at this point, it's been cooking for about 20 minutes right now. And I'm bringing it down to a simmer. And just let it finish with the infusion of the herb. I didn't put the honey out on the table. Do you have honey?
No.
You have agave?
No, I got stevia.
Okay, we're just gonna put the sweetener in. I also I'm gonna put a squirt of fresh lime juice in it. And I'm gonna start talking about that. So one of my finishing touches will be just a squirt of some fresh lime juice. I'll use the lime juice more as a natural preservative. Like if you freeze this or refrigerate it, the vitamin C will, you know, give some protection to the freshness and keeping your dish fresh as possible. Plus that hint of lime also adds a nice flavor accompaniment as well. Nothing fancy. I just take the knife and break up the lime a little bit. And this really adds a wonderful fresh flavor with that hint of lime juice in there. And I thought after that last taste that we could use just a little bit more salt. Do that. So I'm going to stir again. I'll do one final taste. I don't think I should have any adjustments to do. This one. Good. I'm going to change my mind. I want it to be perfect. It's good, but it's almost perfect. And it just needs that one last, just a tablespoon of olive oil. Just for the flavor and getting that bouquet of all of this healthy goodness fused together. All right. So now I'm just going to put the top on. Let it simmer on low for about another 20 minutes or so, and then we'll be ready to plate. And that's done. I just covered it. Let it simmer on a low heat. And about 20 minutes or so. And then in a few minutes, we'll be ready to plate. So it's coming out really well. Okay. Let me check on that pasta. Let me get a fork here. Just toss this around. Yeah, it's got a ways to go.
want it to get so stuck. But when I was a kid, my grandmother, she did, I know I've been telling all these stories about my grandmother, but I have to tell you this one about when my grandmother cooked pasta when I was a little girl. She would take the spaghetti to see if it was done and literally throw it on the wall. And she would say, if the spaghetti stuck on the wall, it was done. If it slid down, she still needed to cook it some more. So that was one of my jobs as a kid, was I had to wipe the wall and pick up the spaghetti if it fell down, or peel it off the wall if it stuck. I don't know where she got that from, but it's the truth. She would throw the spaghetti on the wall to see if it was thick, and that would determine if it was al dente or not to her. So, only in New Orleans. Okay. So I'm just going to take a moment and tidy up a little bit. I got my vintage Corningware ready to transfer the sauce into, and if I was cooking shells, I would put the shells all into the Corningware and just let it all marinate together. But we're doing the linguine today for our noodles. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to get everything over to the sink right now and tidy up a bit.
$52 minutes.
It's good. Because once I pour the pasta into the little drain, and then I'm going to plate it. I'm not going to try to add the green stuff with or the garlic bread. So yeah, just clean up as you go along as much as you can. I'm going to save this piece for later. Get our 2 plates ready. Plating. I'll save that for the soup stock also. Okay. So when I was 18 years old back in 1978, I wrote down a bunch of recipes. I have a cloth covered journal that I still have to this day, and it's always been my dream to have a cookbook about healthy lifestyle, healthy living, nutritional recipes that also represent our culture and our heritage. I think it's so important to show our unity throughout the globe. Like if I cook a Thai dish and I fuse in some Louisiana produce or seafood or an African dish and show our cultural influences of Africa and Africa-America in New Orleans culture. I cook black-eyed peas or red beans and jambalaya and all of these dishes that have our roots just as a part of the cuisine, that the cuisine and the food that we cook is a part of our culture and our heritage, and in so many ways it's what defines us. So why not make it healthy? Why not make it nutritional, delicious, and taste good, and to show folks that there is a healthy way of living that you can really, really enjoy. Keep the antioxidants in your diet, keep the superfoods, the power foods, and then cook it and share it with your friends and family. I mean, what better way, to create a meal and show your culinary art skill, and then it's healthy. I mean, how cool is that? So let me get back to checking on the pasta. Okay, it's getting a little bit better there, and I promise not to throw it on the wall. I'll take a little out. That is perfect. Al dente, stick to the two. Okay, so I'll just strain the pasta, and I don't know, okay. I'm looking for, what you call it, pot holders.
Oh,
Yeah, this is perfect. It's like, no, so I don't burn my hand.
yeah.
This is what you use to take the pots out?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you
Do
don't
that
need
part.
this.
I'm going to do that part again so it'll be easy to add it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to test the pasta. I promise not to throw it on the wall. Let's see if this is cooked. Yummy. That is so perfect. El dente, stick to two. So I'm just going to take the pasta on over and drain it. I think I got this on this way. Make sure I do this right, okay? And it's so easy to cook fresh, natural foods. It's not that complicated at all. Okay, oh, I got a little tomato on me. Okay, great. And just to add another dimension into the noodles, I'm going to add just about a tablespoon of the vegan butter. Nothing else. Just let that marinate. Oh, and the gravy. I wish I could just drink it. It smells so good. Maybe that's an idea. I'll cool it down, put it in a blender, and puree it and make a soup out of this, huh? A whole nother variation. There's always just endless opportunities for creativity and original recipes and unique ideas. Just merging different ideas or other cultural influences into the food that you cook every day. Sky's the limit. Alright, so guess what? We're ready to start plating. I'm going to toss the pasta around. You know, these days, since my daughter's grown, I live alone, and I'm looking at the utensils I'm using. I think I got 5 forks, 4 spoons, an array of knives. I've been keeping it to the minimal these days. Okay. It's a little piece of garlic on my plate. Okay. So now we're going to plate our dish. I'm just going to grab up some noodles. And all of this delicious goodness. I like to piece of the garlic in there. And there you have it. Tofu and Creole tomato sauce. together on the fork. I'm getting it.
Yummy, delicious. And I hope you enjoy too. And I look forward to working with you all on the cookbook, The Great American Cookbook. Thank you so very much for this opportunity. A great original recipe.